Hey, Ayli.
What?
You ready to go over all the changes in the new rulebook?
All of them?
Oh, well, most of them.
Can we complain about them?
Of course. What do you think I'm paying you for?
Wait, you don't?
Coaches, be ready. We are going to take you all to school.
That way you know the rules. So you can forget about them.
What? Oh, so things to note before we start. The playing field, the cornerstones of Blood Bowl, and for
Knuckle's holy goalposts.
Yeah, everything that a veteran knows about the Blood Bowl field and the templates, they stay the same. It's still 15 squares wide, 26 squares deep. Nothing's going to change in that respect. The holy pitch has not been defiled. We're fine on that.
Or
that being
reformed,
said,
the reformation of the Church of Knuckle failed.
Oh yeah, the NAF is dead. Knuckle hates us all. And now we have to deal with the latest referees. I can't remember what they are. I do know that I have to listen to an elf now, and that elf is number 1 on the hit list.
Always.
But Blood Bowl 2020 now gives us a lot more clarity on the things that were just like common law in Blood Bowl. For instance, now we have clear rules on how your player should be facing, even if they are procking really stupid, bonehead, or any of the other extraordinary, quote-unquote, extraordinary kills that have plagued every single big guy since the dawn of Blood Bowl. Now, if they activate like that, you can turn them sideways, and that is the official facing of big guys.
Which is to say that if you are over 6 feet tall and you are done with your turn, you do have to face sideways.
Yes. Riotous Rookies. Some of you may know from the prior Spike magazines that Riotous Rookies came with the Snotlings. They are now an official inducement in 2020, so we're not losing that. Some folks have been asking a lot whether it's legal or not to use Teams of Legend. So far, for those who don't know, Teams of Legend are some of the older teams that didn't have model support but still had support in certain rule sets. I think some of the older Spike magazines before they became Spike themselves actually mentioned these teams. They've kind of just stuck throughout the test of time. If you go to the Games Workshop website and look up Teams of Legend, you will see there's a PDF listing, I think, like 6 teams. It covers like vampires, Khemri, Norse.
Zons. Yeah, Norse as well.
Yeah. They're all, at least according to the PDF, tiered and acceptable to play. So you can still bring those wonderfully kit bash teams to the field without much repercussion. Just remember that we're talking about Games Workshop legendary rules, so they may not stack up the way you remember them.
Yeah.
Good news on that front. Sorry, Ayli. Good news on that front.
No, sorry. No, I was just going to say, it's possible they might get kits because next talking point is Teams of Legend from last edition got put into the new rulebook. So I think it's literally only Necromantic, but they did eventually get models. So maybe we'll see these teams come back. I personally don't think we will, but I guess it's possible.
I don't think we're going to see Norse or Amazons, but if there's one thing that Games Workshop has done to me recently is put me through the ringer when it comes to non-40k, non-Age of Sigmar things. Fantasy is a big example. They're kind of blowing my damn mind with that stuff. So who knows what's going to happen. I really cannot read. Yeah.
Kislev time!
Kislev. More Kislev? You know what? Just always Kislev. I can't remember.
Time.
Yeah.
Time for bears.
That being said, Ayli, I would love it if you could guide me on some of the first couple of changes that we have in the 2020 edition, since there are quite a few.
So yeah, we kind of sent Josh into the salt mine. I mean, a library, with both the books and a candle, and he spent his whole day at just like what changed. Um,
Yeah. Not to
this
mention,
document's really long.
yeah, not to mention, I showed Ayli the rule books that I was using to get it, and he says, "Well, what about these rule books?" I'm like, "There's several rule books for the same year set. Are you out of your fucking mind?"
I'm no man. No,
But it's
but
true. Like the reference material that goes back into like even the last 5 years, I saw 3 rule books. I swear to God, they were different but the same thing, and it confused the hell out of me because Blood Bowl fans have just kind of made their own. Like there's like more blackjack and hookers for them because they've made their own Blood Bowl rules for each, I don't know, passing season. Even tournament rules are kind of just specific to the convention you go to. So I compiled as much as I could in that front. It's still iffy. I'm gonna say
this
iffy.
might not be comprehensive, and this
Yeah.
document's already like 6 pages long. um,
That being said,
the holy word of Nuffle. New things are learned about it with every translation. Anyway,
yeah.
couple things, like a lot of this stuff is also like questions that we've seen people asking. So the first one, are the reference cards from prior editions usable? No, they're not. Stats have changed. Remember, the passing stat was introduced.
The
So
passing
like
stat.
things have changed enough on some players. I mean, some positionals aren't even the same anymore. Like, just to name one example, Necromantic doesn't have a white anymore. It
Mm-hmm.
has like a ghost with like no hands instead, right? Like
Yeah.
things have changed. Um, the Interception Modifier has also changed. A lot of the modifiers in this game have changed. It used to be a flat -2 with an additional -1 for opposing players in tackle zones. Now it's just a -3 to intercept an accurate pass, -2 for an inaccurate pass, and -1 for a wildly inaccurate. And an extra -1 if you are base to base contact with somebody, which is now officially designated as marked, by the way.
Yeah.
So no longer is it slang; it is now official rules terminology.
Mm.
um, I kind of don't understand why it's only a -1 for wildly inaccurate. Like you would think you'd be more prepared to intercept the ball that's flying straight.
Yeah. Maybe I want to say it's just another attempt to screw over elf players, as we've seen before, because it's not even really affecting the past team. Well, it is affecting the past teams. It's not really affecting people who pass. It's affecting people who pass, um, as part of their play for that drive. So I want to say this is just so that it gives the opposing team a better chance to grab the ball with an inaccurate pass. But man, just as a -1, that means that your elves, like your elven teams, if you try to throw against elves, I mean, it's already a bit of a risk. But now, if there's an elf within that wildly inaccurate pass, odds are they're going to take that ball,
Yeah,
which is now even going to constrict conservative passing teams even further because they're not going to risk that. The only flop side of that is that people are going to people are already kind of defanged with elf teams going forward, so you may not have to worry about that if you even plan on passing.
yeah, and I mean, I think part of this is to like try to keep passing doable, because remember that the passing template also changed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that is to say, the physical dimensions haven't changed, but the modifiers for it all have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm double checking it just to make sure I get this right. I know that I know it, but I want to like see it on the internet somewhere before
Yeah.
I say
So
what it is. But in the current edition, it's changed to agility passing modifier, skill
Let's say
modifiers. Okay,
you don't instead
here it
of
is.
a quick pass being a +1 to your agility check like it used to be, now it's just a 0 to your passing stat. And then it
And
moves
it's
from
minus.
-1 forward for short pass,
Ye-
long pass.
yeah. I got it here from. Well, this PDF has the still has the old logo for Blood Bowl, and I mean like the old like blue metal one. So
Oh
God knows
man.
how old this is, but yeah, it's +1, +0, -1, -2 was the old passing template,
Hmm.
and now it's just 0, -1, -2, -3. Like passing got absolutely destroyed. And I know that's been a big talking point about this, but I wanted like to put the numbers out there, like just for people who weren't entirely sure or who don't want to have to dig through a bunch of rulebooks or the internet, like what Josh did. Josh
Yeah.
drank a lot of coffee doing this. I don't recommend people drink that much coffee. That's not good for your
Whew.
heart.
I can hear my heart now.
I can hear the sound of neurons firing.
But that being
Um,
said, like it makes passing all that harder. You don't have the safe pass like you did back in 2016 with conservative passing teams. You still have the pass for the teams that are already built for it, but with humans and I don't even know, like the orc thrower, like you can still reasonably make a quick or short pass. Now you're uh just taking an unnecessary risk. That's all these passing things are to non-passing teams anymore.
yeah, it's hard to say like what ball play looks like in BB 2020 from I haven't gotten the chance to play in a league yet. I have a roster made and everything, and I still haven't been able to fucking play.
Yeah.
Um, it's I haven't heard anybody talking about like what their experience was playing like playing passing teams and stuff. Anyway, rambled on a lot about that. Like I already said before, marking, because apparently that was the next point on this. Marking is now official rules terminology. It's no longer slang. That's fine. One of the big ones that got talked about, it had to get FAQ'd for clarification. Team rerolls are no longer a once per turn thing. You can just use them.
Yeah. So long as it's not like just like the old rules, you cannot re-roll a re-roll. Once you make a re-roll for a skill, you take the value that you re-rolled, and that's it. You can't just re-roll a re-roll as much as I know some people would if given the chance.
Gotta get that one die pow, man. um, I was like kind of skeptical about this one at first because that's a really altering rule. But then I
Hmm.
was like, okay, how often are you actually like really all this does is just reward good play
Yeah.
or like reward safe play, I guess. Which is great for me because that's just like my play style.
Hmm.
Uh, and there's gonna be like people who listen to this and be like, haven't I seen you like sacrifice a level 3 gutter runner for a touchdown? Yes. Shut up. No, I'm kidding. But like for stunty teams, this is kind of a big deal because it makes one turning way easier.
Hmm.
Um, and also just like if you don't use your rerolls, um, so like if you're somebody who like plays very safe and doesn't like have to use a lot of rerolls or doesn't like take a lot of unnecessary risks, it doesn't mean that you're wasting your rerolls. Um, I get that. I think those kind of teams or like those kind of people are still going to play low reroll teams. So, like high TV orcs will probably like still go to 2 rerolls or whatever.
Hmm.
But I think overall, like this is actually like a really good rule because it gives like play style flexibility and player flexibility. With like, well, I like playing with a little bit more rerolls, so I'm going to play with 3, and I'm not going to have to worry about not using that last one.
Yeah.
Like I will find something to use this on now. I don't recommend taking plays specifically to use your rerolls, but I mean it does mean that like you have a little bit more of a buffer at the end of the day, which I think is pretty nice.
Yeah. Definitely.
Uh, GFIs are now rushing, Apparently,
Rules?
everything
Yeah.
is the same there. I know one that got a lot of people's attention was Fan Factor is now dedicated fans.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, yeah, that's correct. That's a now, not a not known. Fan Factor is now known as dedicated fans. I can read.
Yeah.
This one's been talked about a lot specifically, not like the renaming, but the way that Fan Factor now works with money. That's been beaten all to hell in Blood Bowl 2020 discourse, but basically there's no more rolling dice on your money. Instead, it's the total number of fans divided by 2 plus however many touchdowns you got multiplied by 10k. There's no randomness anymore in how much money you get at the end of a league match.
Hmm.
Josh, how do you feel about that?
I am. I am absolutely for doing it that way, having set amounts, only because the difference between 10,000 gold and 60,000 gold is soul rending, especially when you're like me, who has tied or lost most games and has rolled a 1 on gaining money literally every single time except for once. And I want like a structure to that, only because it only benefits the people who are at the lower end, because now they can prepare for the money they're going to get, and or at least what the lowest they can get, and keep moving forward instead of hoping for a D6 roll after the end of a 3-hour match or something ridiculous like that. It's a it's Blood Bowl. It's always going to be a little random, but when it comes to what you gain, especially in league play, I would like to see it more concrete, which is what they did. So I agree with the change. Granted, it still means math, and as we know, coaches aren't great at math, but I feel like if we practice it enough, we will get the math down.
Yeah, math is really ugh, math. Um, yeah, I mean, like, I'm not thrilled with having to buy Fan Factor early on to build up a bank account, because remember, like, you can only have a minimum of 1 fans. Like, that is your minimum, and your
Yeah.
maximum is, I think it's 6. I think you could buy up to 5. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, which means that if you don't buy fans early, you are missing on some like economic power. It's like you win your first game, like if you win it like 1-0 or something, cool, you got 20k.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in an edition where, like, I think as we're well, like when we get to like talking about like the team changes, starting rosters are a little up in the air now. Like things are different.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, a lot of teams get like kept their setups, but some of them like sacrificed a reroll or like sacrificed the apothecary now. Do you really want to spend like 3 games grinding for your apothecary? Like it's really hard to say
Mm-hmm.
um if this is, or like it's really hard to see, like, figure out like what the economy looks like. And there's been a lot of discussion about like TV on the pitch versus like actual TV and stuff like that, and I'm not going to get into that stuff.
Yeah.
But
That.
it's,
Yeah.
suffice to say, buy a few fans.
Yeah.
Spend your extra money.
Just like a certain Nurgle affliction, we need a lot more long-term research to decide on whether this is going to hurt us or not. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that giving it a specified value is a good thing. But I could totally see, like, 3 months down the road, someone finding an exploit for this, and then we're talking about teams that are about making money to get to buff your players, than actually making a roster that fits normal league play, or about winning the match instead of just building a bank account like you said. But we'll see.
Yeah.
There's already spiraling expenses and other means to punish people who have a large bank account and don't spend it. But we have to see how that works in the new edition, because I haven't seen anyone actually experience the downside of having a large amount of spendable cash.
Yeah, because I think spiraling expenses now starts at a certain. No, it's always started at a certain cash value. I don't know why I thought it started at 2,000 TV. Not, not that you're hitting 2,000 TV like
Yeah.
ever, but
Yeah.
Ooh, but what else is there, Josh?
Well,
What else is there? What's in the box?
what's in the box? Well, the box now gives a specified term for the coach that has the lower team value when they enter a match. They're known as the underdog now. And all the underdog says is that they get prayers or Nuffle. And then you're asking, but what's prayers and Nuffle? Don't worry, I'm getting there. So prayers and Nuffle is a new table that they added for underdogs specifically. For the cost of about 50k, 50,000 gold. You get it during the pre-match sequence, but it affects certain rules for play. And if I had my book next to me, I'd be able to tell you. But
I've got this open in front of me.
Yeah.
Let me dig through it.
I know the one people were talking about in particular was to throw a rock or have a chance to throw a rock at a stalling player.
Yeah, stalling's codified, which
yeah,
I think is
stalling,
hilarious.
Again, going on the topic of specified terms for rules, stalling is now a specified term, and you can get a prayer to Nuffle that now punishes stalling.
You don't have to induce this, do you?
What's that?
Do you have to induce this? Like, you just get this, right? Like, you don't have to like pay petty cash for this.
I believe you get one for every 50k team difference. So yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. It's not in the inducement section. Yeah, you just get it. Okay.
Yeah. So let me change that. It's 50k difference, not 50k you have to pay.
All right.
Bear with me. I've
For
been looking
every
at
50K.
paragraph rules for quite some time. That is, it is a 50k difference, and you just keep getting more prayers for each 50k difference, and they can change a lot. But we'll see. Again, we'll have to see with long-term league play how much the prayers enough will actually change the game, because it was already pretty emphasized in 2016 that you wanted to keep your team value reasonable and not just to cure team members that had a lot of skills or too many team members, so your opposing coach wouldn't just go halfling chef, steal all your rerolls, and then you're stuck. So
wait, you got a halfling chef?
I haven't yet, but the
okay, because
video game made me very scared of ever getting halfling chef out of my rerolls.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the fun thing about halfling chef is like, halfling chef is like so not worth the money, but it's a really good benchmark to know that you just have too much. Like, nobody ever actually gets halfling chef. Like, actually gets like, nobody like buys that 300k inducement. I have once actually while not playing halflings. It was really funny. Not that it really helped me with the game, as most people discover. But like 300k of inducements is just such a good benchmark of what did you do?
I mean, it's mostly just like my Chaos team or my Norse team would get really buffed, and this was early in my league play. I'd play Norse. I would get an insane amount of skills early on if I played right. I would play against a pro elf team or just a really good elf player. They'd have a team value of like almost 870, and I'd be sitting at almost 1700. And
everybody's first team is super bloated in Blood Bowl 2. It's fine.
Exactly. So, going on, Prayers Snuffle is something I encourage coaches to look at after we talk about it, simply because there is a list. It's very well detailed, and you may be surprised. Maybe you can play like an elf and incorporate a low team value into your play, depending on if you find the Prayers to Nuffle agreeable to your circumstances. But since you're
there's
an
like
elf player, you're probably going to stall, so I wouldn't recommend it.
there's some really interesting stuff here.
Yeah,
Like
go.
throw a rock was moved from the kickoff event table to here, and like this is actually really useful. There's one that randomly gives your opponent like 3 opposing players loner 2-up.
Yeah. Well, interesting.
There's one that gives a player stab.
Wait, really? What's that called?
Stiletto. Randomly select one player on your team that is available to play during this drive and that does not have the loner X trait. Until the end of this drive, that player gains the stab trait.
Dude, my stotlings are going
There's
to
one
have
that
stab.
Snotlings with stab. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. There's one that gives like a player of yours mighty blow. Some of these are like really not great. Like the one that says if they're standing on this one particular square on the board, they get sucked into a trap door.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still like, since you don't have to pay for it, it only stands to benefit your play.
Yeah, it's a lot of these are only for one drive, too.
Okay.
And they all proc at the start of the game. So some of these you don't get to choose when they happen. They just have to happen at the start of the game. But yeah, I mean, like if you're like a slower team, this actually really helps you. Huh. I hadn't done like an in-depth look at this table, but oh my gosh, this is actually really cool.
We can probably save it for another discussion, like when we're able to start talking about long-term league play, because I mean, since it's a set difference in team value, we'll have to see it eventually. At some point, we will see this come up again. Or it will be inconsequential and we'll never hear about it.
All right. I have a feeling it's going to more likely be inconsequential, but I would love to give. Oh wait, there's one that gives you more SP. There's a call that gives you more SPP even.
Really?
Yeah, if you get a cause, you get 3 SPP instead of the usual 2 for one of them.
That's awesome.
Let's go. Anyway, we've rambled about this silly D16 table long enough.
Mm-hmm. So, again, we're talking more about specifications. Unoccupied squares are now clearly defined as squares that don't have a player inside of them. Back in some of the rules, it never specified what an unoccupied square was, so people assumed that if you had a ball or any other, or a trapdoor, or any of like the field-specific items that you can get for certain pitches, that counted as an occupied square, but it now is specifically just a player that counts as occupying a square. Anything else, it counts as unoccupied. That won't make too much of a difference for regular play, but when it comes to things like leap and certain skills, they specifically ask for unoccupied squares when you use them. So keep an eye on that change. Speaking of which, speaking of leak, to be more precise, you can now jump over prone players. And this isn't just something for players with leap. It is now something any player can do so long as they follow the normal agility check. It is like leap in the sense that you jump over a square onto another unoccupied square, but it has to be a prone player, regardless of what made them prone or what's keeping them prone. And it follows normal agility check rules. So it's just your normal agility check, -1 if there is an opposing player marking you. And that's it. So now you can't just knock your dudes over and then make a colossal pile up and then trap players with prone players. Now you can jump over them.
Well, you can. It just has to be 2 players wide. So just use your entire team to pin one stupid elf on the side of the pitch. Side note, this change also means that your elves have played entirely too much Assassin's Creed, and now all they can do is parkour.
Exactly. Parkour over the ogre. Now, stunty players, I'm glad that they did this. They added another wonderful table, the stunty table, and all that does is clarify the stunty rule in terms of injuries and in terms of KOs and badly hurts. So if you look at the 2020 rulebook and you have any questions about how the stunty rule affects your player, all you have to do, eventually when they get punched into the ground and never get back up, you can just look at the table and reference what you need to do for their armor rolls, for their skill checks, and more importantly, for their injuries, of which they'll have many. Now, if your goblin doesn't die due to the stunty rule, when he's performing a foul and he gets caught, you now have the ability to what is now known as arguing the call. Just like any other sport, you can go right up to the ref and yell into his ear as he doesn't care. So how arguing the call works is specifically when your player gets caught during a foul, you can roll a d6 and see on a table. If you roll a 1, you yourself get sent off. Now, some people said, does that mean the game's over? No, it's just like NFL rules where you eject the coach, but he's now in a booth somewhere in Atlanta yelling orders to his Blood Bowl team. That being said, you do get a -1 to brilliant coaching, so it is as if you're not there.
Worth noting, GW does in fact pay for your plane ticket to Atlanta.
Yeah. On a 2
Don't
through,
quote me on that,
yeah.
but I'm pretty sure it says that somewhere in the rulebook.
On a
it might be to Altdorf. I don't remember exactly.
It may be. Rolling a 2 through 5, the ref does what a ref normally does, just ignores you, and the call still stands. Your player gets sent off. On a 6, your player gets to stay on the field. However, and this is big, even if your player survives getting, survives the foul call, it still causes a turnover. So it's not amazing, but you at least get to keep whoever was fouling. And I know if you're a dwarf player, at least being able to keep your dwarf on the field regardless of a turnover is very important.
I have a friend who is a big fan of specking dedicated foulers, to the point that he'll even put sneaky git and dirty player on the same player. He doesn't care if it's suboptimal or not. He's like, no, it says fouling skill. I'm putting them on the fouler. So Adam, if you're listening to this, have fun with this.
Yeah.
Because he's gonna roll this every chance he gets, and he's gonna be so happy about it, and then it's gonna come off like twice, but he won't care because he's like, I get to yell at the ref because he's trying to set up my player for kicking somebody in the nuts.
He's a guy that as soon as he rolls a double, he rolls another d6 next to his foul roll because he's already going to argue the call before the foul roll even gets determined.
It was perfectly legal.
Yeah.
There's 4 people surrounding him, and his rib cage is everywhere. It's perfectly legal.
Yeah. Oh man. So now, when we talked about inducements a little bit, now a lot of the inducements that were introduced into some of the online rulebooks I had to shuffle through are now officially part of the game. When it comes to cheerleaders and part-time assistant coaches, when it comes to cheerleaders and assistant coaches, that's already specified. Now, on your inducements, you have a reason to use that 20 and 30K petty cash that you normally wouldn't get to use with the prior rule books. Now you can hire temp agency cheerleaders and part-time assistant coaches, and all they are is you get a cheerleader or a coach for 20K, and they last the entire game, but only for that game.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
I have been dying for GW to give me a reason to use that small amount of petty cash, and it has a small effect with it. So it feels natural. It's probably one of my favorite changes simply because the change matches the amount of cash you invest into it.
Yeah, it's like it's one of those things of like TV doesn't necessarily always reflect like the differences in a team because or like how like actually like well skilled like the team is or like how good the team is.
Mm-hmm.
Um so like the difference of like saying, well, teams that are plus or minus 50k, like plus or minus 40k, should be relatively even on footing. That's not always true.
Yeah.
It is like it is a lot of the time in like Blood Bowl 2, but I've seen more than a few instances where it's really not. And it's just like, well, I'll just throw the 10k and get a Bloodweiser babe, and now my team is so far ahead. It's like, okay, so
Yeah.
now it's like some small. Now they're like officially acknowledging that, like, okay, maybe like plus or minus 20k is something that we should be aware of. And I think that this also, honestly, this like really punishes bloat too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know like teams in Blood Bowl are supposed to be lean, but some people could get away with like a little bit of bloat. Now now they're officially adding in things. I mean, like, obviously you're not going to be like, oh man, I need to cut a player so my opponent doesn't get cheerleaders.
Yeah.
But um
But yeah.
this is a step in the direction of like your team needs to be lean.
Mm-hmm.
Um like think like Cabal Vision ladder orcs lean.
Lean and clean. And it kind of
Yes.
it piggybacks off of what we were talking about earlier. Like it's kind of like adding an extra, like being able to re-roll again in the same turn. It'll teach you to be conservative with both your team and your play style. Um, so when players inevitably start snowballing, you have to ring them back in instead of just letting them go off and keep accruing skills and value, because Blood Bowl is now very keen on punishing even small differences. So it's now your team is going to be under a second magnifying glass, since the first one obviously was not enough. Um,
Yeah.
Going on the next couple inducements, we have the Weather Mage. This one I'm not too keen on, mostly because, I mean, let me explain what it does. You, for 30k, you can roll on the weather table to change the weather. Um, Unfortunately, that weather change only lasts for your turn. So I don't really see how you can justify spending 30k even in petty cash when you can get a cheerleader or a coach instead and just nix the 10k that you would have afterwards. Because
When does
unless
this
like the weather
activate?
is dire, before you even start the game, why would you put 30k even in petty cash for a weather mage? It's just I find it odd. Um,
When does this activate?
uh,
Once per game at the start of one of your team turns.
yeah,
Okay.
at the start of your turn. Um,
And you can apply a modifier. Wait, what the hell? Roll
y-
on the weather table, applying a modifier of plus or minus 1 or 2.
yeah, so you can.
Um,
So basically, it's saying, do you want the weather to get worse or do you want it to get better? Maybe.
it doesn't say when you have to, if you have to choose the modifier before you roll the dice.
Yeah.
So that's nice. At least it gives you a range. Am I the only one imagining like an old school like Warhammer fantasy battles like Magic table?
In a
And I'm
sense,
seeing it, like with yes, the weather lore of Magic.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, in a sense, I would like to see it be a permanent change, at least for the drive. Having it just for the turn really waters down what that could mean for a team. But that's, I mean, again, I've never seen anyone use Weather Mage. No one's talked about Weather Mage. I don't see any consensus about Weather Mage. Reddit is too busy talking about GameStonk. So it's just, it to me, I find it to be a waste of 30k. But who knows? Maybe Weather Mage will be meta, and I'll have to cry. Now,
Weather Mage meta, let's go.
speaking of meta, special plays. Some people know about the special plays deck. That is also an inducement, and it's 100k. You shuffle the deck and pick a card. I'm not going to sit here and go over the cards because that would take a lot of time, and we're running out of that.
Welcome to Josh ASMR, where he reads off all of the
Special
things,
play.
all of the text on a randomly selected Blood Bowl object.
Mm-hmm. Every time
Today he rolled the first edition Blood Bowl rulebook in German.
There's the Mortuary Assistant now. It plays both the Mortuary Assistant and the Plague Doctor. I'll go into. If you remember Igor, that's essentially what Igor is. The difference being that Mortuary Assistant is 100k, and it's for the teams that are under the Sylvanian Spotlight special rule. And Plague Doctor is an apothecary specific to Knurkle units. Now that we have a specified god for Chaos teams, that means that you can choose Knurkle and get an extra apothecary. I don't know why you would do that, but you can do that now.
So I guess to explain this, stuff like the goblins getting half price bribes in prior editions, stuff like that, are now codified by a special rules system where they sort teams into they sort teams by the special rules. So
Yeah.
So the idea of Undead and Necromantic getting Igor, well, now they're both Sylvanian Spotlight teams. It's just an easier way of codifying that, but it also lets you spread the love a little bit more on some of those stuff. So Black Orcs also get half price bribes now. I think they do. Let me double check real quick.
Yeah, double check that. To piggyback off of that,
They do.
they go under. I'm glad you're happy about that.
Yes.
So, back in the lore, they always talked about smaller leagues being faction specific or origin specific. This is kind of making a rule set out of that small bit of lore. All these teams come originally from smaller leagues before they hit the big time, facing opponents from different factions, and these are the kind of assets they bring with them, which I think is great. I think that is a huge improvement on expanding on what it's like to be a Blood Bowl team or experience the little tidbits of fun interactive lore that Blood Bowl brings to the table.
Yeah. Should also be noted on the note of the Plague Doctor, why you would do it. So when you pick a Chaos team, this is Renegades or Chosen. You can your special rule is favored of ... and it's either Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, or Undivided. Currently in BB 2020, the only favored of rule that actually has rules is Nurgle. Mm-hmm. So if you're unless you're playing it for lore reasons, if you don't care about making your team for lore reasons, which at that point I would say, come on, you're playing a Chaos team, that's kind of mandatory.
Yeah.
Or should be mandatory. The only one that actually gives you a benefit is the Plague Doctor, and I actually think the Plague Doctor is weirdly also just not useful on Chaos Chosen. I'm gonna have to double check and read this again real quick. But it's very out there and silly.
Odd. The only reason I see them adding so many Chaos Gods is to actually go into the next thing I'll talk about, which is biased refs and star players. There has to be something that GW is cooking up for these remaining Chaos Gods, because right now, like Ayli said, there are no benefits, nor are there assets that you can bring with the other Chaos Gods except for Nurgle. So there has to be something. And I hope they bring it out soon, because I can see a lot of people asking questions about their Chaos Gods, because they're going to look into the book and find that it's completely barren besides being able to choose a god. Right now, it just depends on your kit bash and paint job. So we'll see. I hope that with these, my next thing I want to talk about, which is biased refs, you may get to see like a Slanesh ref, Chaos Undivided ref, which I hope is Bellicor, just even more angrier. Yeah. So
Just
biased refs.
Angie Bellicor.
Yeah.
The triple release of Age of Sigmar, hypothetically Total War 3. Some people are talking about that there, and then Blood Bowl. He's everywhere.
Yeah. The first son of Chaos, the first fan of Nuffle. The
Yeah.
first, so biased referees, they come in various prices, they have various rules, and they all do a variety of things, very juxtaposed things. So far, the only one that's listed in the 2020 rulebook is the Dwarf Referee, which I think is actually Bugman himself as a ref, or someone who works for Bugman. And
it's Joseph Bugman himself.
Yeah. And so the way he is biased is that if the rules to send off a player in the event of a foul don't happen, if you roll a d6 and it's a 5 up, the referee just sends him off anyway. So, but be careful. Like Dwarf, I think Bugman is like 200K for an
Yeah.
inducement.
He's an infamous coaching staff.
Yeah.
Which is a similar thing. But Bugman's thing is also that if you don't have 11 players to go out on the pitch, he then goes out onto the pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I think he gets sent off. I don't remember.
But it leaves a lot of room for interesting plays and interesting characters. So I hope that there is some sort of like huge referee pack at some point that just includes a crap ton of referees you can pick and choose. Because that would be really interesting
That would be really funny.
to put official rules and official product into the referees, the cheerleaders, your coaching staff, all of that. Instead of it just being a kit bashy thing, which is still great. Don't get me wrong. But I like me some rules. So we shall see. Following on that, I was just mentioning infamous coaching staff. It's very similar to a bias ref, except for the fact that it's specific to certain teams. And again, there's only one listed in the 2020 rulebook.
Yeah.
So expect to see more.
It says in the rulebook there are too many infamous in parenthesis infamous coaching staff to list here, but most are only available to certain teams. Details of further infamous coaching staff can be found in the various Blood Bowl supplements available, which means Google.
Yeah.
I'm literally looking this up right now.
Just be careful. If Blood Bowl has taught me one thing, is that there is a lot of fan created things, and when I talk about fan created things, I'm not just talking about the Facebook or Reddit post that shows how they could make a Blood Bowl team or specific rules that they want to see changed in a Blood Bowl team. Tournament rules, specific tournament rules, I also count as fan rules. So just be careful what you're looking up, because I am willing to bet that if you looked hard enough, you could find, like, for example, the Simian team. Someone made a Blood Bowl list of the Jakiro units from 40K, which, if you don't know who they are, they're a bunch of orangutans, literal, actual bright orange orangutans. And they made an entire team out of it, and they've also made, like, 3D printed ape models for it. And they made an entire team roster for it. And I've seen it in tournaments, too. The third or fourth rule set I read had the Simian team in it. So just be careful. If you get confused, just reference the 2020 rules, because that is what I expect to see out of tournaments going forward, is following that rule book and then following whatever special cards or rules or players come out in the upcoming year. So.
Yeah, I was looking at some tournament rule sets for BB 2020, like different, like people who are doing different tournaments where they can do them, and it was almost all of them had the teams of legend. They had to, but because the funny one was people these tournaments had to specifically mention if Acorn the Squirrel was allowed, because he came out in White Dwarf before, which means that you have to explicitly state it. And I was like, That's amazing. You have to say if the squirrel is here. I looked it up. There are some other infamous coaching staff from Death Zone Season 2.
Well, what do they do? What they do will really change. Like, if they make modifiers to agility, like, or well, actually, specifically, if they make modifiers to agility, you have to ask yourself, would that be something that they would keep, or since there's the passing skill now, would they change that modifier to something else? I find it really iffy to use any of the infamous coaching staff from prior editions because we don't know specifically what their intention was when they made the model. And I know that's a very rules lawyery thing to say, but it's true. What the hell did they want some of these infamous coaching staff before? And if they wanted to add it, why didn't they add it into some of the special play cards or things of that nature?
Right, and these don't have passing stats because it's from BB 2016.
Yeah.
So it's like it's hard to say. If you do have some of these old supplements, just as an aside, the only one that I know of that is 100% compatible with BB 2020 is the Necromantic one.
Yeah.
The one that came out with the Necromantic is fully compatible. The inducements from like almost all of them should be, but the only one that I know that was designed with BB20 in mind was the Necro one. I know that's very like wishy-washy, but it's a Games Workshop game. We were already all involved in that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So.
Yeah.
Now we have to get into the bread and butter of the situation. And by bread and butter, I mean the changes that have happened to the teams. And I thought they were, like, besides the passing skill changes, the general changes to the teams, or rather the players themselves, that would be it. I was wrong. Wrong. Very, very, very wrong.
Yeah.
There is a
There's a lot of stuff
change,
here.
at least like 2 or 3 changes per team. And
yeah,
some of it's small, but I mean, do you want to start with this, Ayli, or do you want me to ramble on more? Because
I think why don't we try to blow through this? We're at the 50-minute mark.
Yeah. Okay. So
like let's try to blow through this. So a lot of them. So like. And I think we'll do an episode later, like really dissecting some of these or dissecting some of our favorite ones. But a lot of these teams either got new positionals or had a major like cost altering factor. For the most part, like humans didn't have that, but some other teams are like, well, now you're sacrificing a reroll for the start that you would have normally gone with. So maybe you start at 2 instead of 3 or something like that, or like Necro situation of you can't take everything, which I mean you couldn't do that anyway, but now it's worse. Now taking everything is way worse than before. So Underworld Denizens, like from last edition, they got Gutter Runners. That is still here. But now you can also get a Rat Ogre instead of the Troll. You can only get one big guy. One of the things that they added in this edition was that teams have multiple options for big guys, but they only get one still. And you can get Underworld Snotlings now. I'm not sure why you would do that, but you can.
Yeah. Cheap options, man. If you give a cheap option for a team, I'd say you're enhancing, the team, because now the team has more character and you understand it a bit more. And I mean, it's now someone can just be like, you know what? I feel like putting 4 Snotlings on the field. Let's see what happens. They don't have swarming, so why would I take them? But they're there now.
Yeah. Chaos Renegades, they now have a human thrower positional with animosity. And you can get a Rat Ogre. So you now have access to 4. You can still only have 3 big guys, but you have 4 total choices. And I quote, you can choose a god to simp to.
Yes. And I like we were talking about earlier, you don't get anything unless you choose Knurkle. So you really are just choosing who to simp to. You're simp to whomever. I hope you have fun. I look forward to the kit bashing, but that's it. For orcs is interesting. Animosity
So
on
mad I was
everyone
right
except
about
for the
this.
goblins and the untrained troll.
I jokingly suggested, like, man, what if they brought animosity? Like, well, like, what if they did like a huge callback and they brought animosity to the orcs? It was like, I was just kidding. And this is when the edition was like first getting leaked, so orcs, the orc one hadn't like gotten out yet, and I was right, and I hate when I'm right, and I'm salty, kind of. But
yeah, black orcs are now known as big end blockers, which have they have animosity against each other. But they have +1
yeah,
movement.
only for other biggins.
Yeah. But they have +1 movement now. So that does change a lot. Now it's 5, so you can they're as slow as a dwarf, which is great. The poor thrower, thanks to animosity, may not see the light of day anymore, but we shall see.
He
has a better
I mean,
pass
he didn't
stat.
really see the light of day to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's shorter leagues you would just for like the sure hands, but now it's like, why would you even take it for the sure hands?
All right. Moving on to
Oh god, the human thrower Chaos Renegades also has animosity for all teammates.
yeah. Well,
I forgot about that.
it's really hard.
Why?
I keep forgetting to look back at the dead horse of the passing skill and beat it a couple more times because Jesus, I keep getting reminded of how gutted that poor thing is.
It's like, let's make this new skill. Let's make it terrible.
So, ogres is also an interesting change. You can only now get 5 ogres on the field unless you get the new ogre runt punter, which has kick teammate. And now kick teammate is almost exactly like a mirror of throw teammate. But if you F up on the kick target, which I think is when you roll a 1 and the automatic failure, the kick target is removed from play, and he has an injury roll, which a KO is the lowest result you can get. So you can now get your 6th ogre, and his special ability is to either kick the teammate with a normal throw teammate roll, or you yeet him into non-existence. He gets KO'd at best,
Yes.
which is very ogres, but doesn't help them at all.
As a seasoned ogre coach, I like this change a lot. Does the kick teammate have a different thing going for it? I thought it did. I thought it was like a kick in a straight line instead of like the throw teammate where it could scatter like anywhere.
I think it follows like actual kicking template rules. I have yet to really see it. That change that I wrote was specifically like from the rules, so I'm still uncertain how it would work. We would have to go over it in our like a staffing episode because this is it's just so new that I decided just to use throw teammate as a template and then write what was different from it, and that was it.
Okay, okay, so here it is. It's in addition to throw teammate. So and you just follow the exact same rules for throw teammate.
Yeah.
With additional risk of like, accidentally ripping the head off of a Noblar.
Yeah.
But no, it's an additional pass basically, which is really nice. Actually, ogres really need that.
Yeah. So yeah, now you have a Noblar Air Force in addition to your kicky boys. It's just they've made ogres more ridiculous, and it is definitely something that I could see the ogres doing.
Alternatively,
yeah.
Rather than an Air Force, you have an ogre artillery division.
Oh, God. Knurkle's rot. People got upset initially that Knurkle's rot wasn't a thing anymore. If they'd paid attention, they would know that it is now known as plague-ridden. And the rules themselves remain the same.
Yeah, everything is the same there.
And I've double-checked and triple-checked. It's the same down to the rule wording. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, it's literally a copy-paste.
Yeah. Then very small cosmetic changes, or not even cosmetic, changes to the Knurkle Warrior titles. Knurkle Warriors are now bloaters, and the Beast of Knurkle is now known as a rot spawn. Same units, same skills, essentially. Just a different title. Necromantic, as we said before, they no longer get a white. They are now getting wraiths, which are more punchy and have a new skill rule that I can't remember what the heck it's called. They have foul appearance, regen, and sidestep. So they're kind of like a pro elf blitzer who died and got very angry. And it's I don't know how else to say that. It's essentially a pro elf that is dead. And
Except he's got no hands, so he can't even do the thing that he was best at.
He ain't got no hands, but he does have foul appearance. So Necromantic is a faster, more punchier undead, like they were really initially.
Yeah, it's really silly. Humans really won in this edition. The throwers went up to 80k, but they have the 2-up passing stat, which makes them one of the best passers in the game. So actually passing in this edition, humans are capable of it. Catchers and blitzers had slight 5k price changes. Catchers are up 65k, blitzers go down to 85k, and now you can take halflings. So you can now one turn with humans. You have everything now.
Yeah, it's.
I'm actually really excited for humans in this edition.
Definitely. Halflings, they get hefties and catchers. Hefties.
Yeah, so from BB 2016, but yeah.
Yeah, they're from BB 2016, but important things to note: hefties don't have the right stuff, so they can't be thrown. But they do have dodge and fend, which I found was really interesting. So I want to see how well they perform just off of that. And they have higher armor. Catchers, they have catch and sprint, which I think is good. I want to see.
Yeah, and they have right stuff, so you can throw them.
Yeah.
So they're just better at
a better turn one, I guess.
Yeah, they're better at one turning.
Yeah. Goblins is a little interesting. They most of their special weapons or special players have gone up in price. The Bomba, for instance, went up to 45k. Pogoer is now up. It now has a special ability known as a Pogo Stick, which removes modifier to leap onto unoccupied squares. So if you get marked by a plethora of opposing teammates, or you can just jump, use that Pogo Stick to your advantage.
Yeah.
The Doom Diver, it goes down 10k to 60k, but it loses fan favorite. Fan favorite is no longer a skill. So for those who, for some reason, using fan favorite to its advantage, I guess you're going to have to find a new lease on life. But on the good note, there are train trolls. They're 5k more, but instead of a 4-up loner, they have a 3-up loner, and they get projectile vomit, which is just a weird, dangerous version of stab.
It's literally just stab, but you have to make a 2-up, and on a 1 you stab yourself.
Exactly.
That's literally what happens. Should also be noted that Ooligan also lost. I think the Ooligan had fan favorite, didn't he?
Yes. I think.
Yeah, so he also lost it. He's got Dirty Player +1 because now you can have multiple you can have different numbers of Mighty Blow, Dirty Player, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stack them, but you can get more of it, or some players have +2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's just got Dirty Player, Disturbing Presence, Dodge Right Stuff, Stunty. The poor Ooligan.
Yeah. Elven Union is mostly Elven Union still keeps their good passing. Throwers and blitzers are up 5k, which is very sad day because that's their most expensive, save for the catcher. And like the other elves, the lineman elves, I think, still have a 4-up passing, so you no longer have that 2-up passing for all the elves. Just like any other elf team, they got gutted, trying to avoid being the dead horse again, the dead pass horse. Dwarves Slayers go up 5k to 95k. Death Roller is up 170k. Well, it's not up to 170k. It's up to 170k. So very expensive units are only getting more expensive.
Why is the Death Roller as a firm proponent of Death Rollers? I'm offended by what happened to the dwarves.
Yeah. Woe is dwarves, apparently. Dark Elves, the Assassin goes down 5k to 85k. So if you really want to stab people, now you can stab on a better dime. An important change, Chaos Chosen now can choose between a troll or an ogre. They're untrained trolls, so they still have the 4-up loner. And the ogre is really just another ogre. Which is good because now you can steer clear of the Minotaur and get something that just has Bonehead, which I think is an upgrade. The Minotaur now has an ability called Unchannel Fury, which is the exact same as Animal Savagery.
It is, except if you fail the 2-up, if you've got somebody next to you, he whacks that person.
Wait, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I swear he does. I swear, because Animal Savagery is also what's on the vampires in Teams of Legend. But yeah, let me check. There's also some changes to teams that were introduced in BB 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I think Snotlings had a fair few number of changes, but I don't recall what exactly those were.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly in like random cost stuff.
All right.
Yeah, let me take a look here.
And since we're closed for time, all you need to know about star players at this moment, they're cheaper, and pay attention to the loner values. Loner is no longer a 4-up base. It is a specified value. So you have to look at the loner value for the star players whenever you're doing them.
Okay, here it is. Animal Savagery, yeah. If you're making a block or a blitz, it's a 2-up. Even if they are, but before performing an action, roll a d6. Apply. Okay, no, here it is. You roll a d6 and you apply a +2 modifier to the dice roll for Animal Savagery.
Mm-hmm.
On a roll of a 1 or 3, a standing teammate of your choice that is currently adjacent to this player is immediately knocked down. It doesn't cause a turnover unless they had the ball. And then you do it just as if you were making an injury roll, like you make an armor roll, all that stuff.
So, again, don't take the Minotaur, take the ogre.
Probably take the ogre.
Yeah.
And then if there's nobody standing next to them, their activation ends immediately, and they lose their tackle zones.
Ooh.
And on a 4-up, it goes as normal. So it's functionally a 2-up. If it's still the same thing, but
it's not like Animal Savagery in that you don't keep your tackle zones, and you may knock down one of your players. So it's becoming it's became even
Wild
more
animal.
risky to use a Minotaur. And I think the Minotaur is still the most expensive big guy you can get for the Chaos Chosen. Get the ogre.
Yeah. Just get the ogre.
So, really quickly, skill changes. A lot.
Don't be fooled by the names, because some of these they kept the same name, but they do very different things now.
Yeah, please look at them. Accurate, for instance, accurate usually just to be a +1 to passing. Short, sweet, and simple. Now it's a +1 to short and quick passes only. So be ready for that. That is a pretty serious change to a staple of Blood Bowl skills since its initiation, really.
Animosity has changed as well.
Yeah.
Animosity is now specified who the player has animosity against. Animosity before was codified as different race with no codification for race. Now it's like you can have, like with the orcs, orc biggins have animosity for other orc biggins, but not all other orcs, and not for goblins. So you should really check that. You also can't change the target to a player who the ball carrier doesn't have animosity for if they fail their animosity. The action just ends there, which I didn't even know that you could do that.
Yeah, no apparently no one did. I remember seeing a forum about that, because normally when you fail the animosity roll, the only person you're handing it off to is someone that you have animosity to. It's just one player. You normally don't make a quick pass or a handoff to an animosity player and then another player next to him simply because either A, that you're using goblins like you would in Underworld, so they have animosity, so you can't use it, or B, you have the Skaven, which you're probably going to use as like a marking zone or a way to screen, so you don't normally have another player next to you when you're doing it. So it was really interesting, and then they got rid of it.
Huh.
But yeah.
What was the timestamp on that forum? Was that like BB 2016? Was that earlier?
When I read it, it was part of the NAF rules for tournament play. It was like a FAQ that they made at the
Huh.
very end of their rule book. There was a small FAQ made in like 2017 that listed. God, I spent way too much time reading that. That listed.
But it's stuff like that's fascinating.
Yeah,
Though.
I mean, of course, with a game that has seen most of its support through fans, it's not surprising that a large fan-made rulebook would also have a FAQ. But that's what it is. It was just a FAQ off of the NAF rules that were based off of 2016 rules. That being said,
Cool.
Bombardier. The only difference actually is that you can't use the new skill on the ball, which I'll get into, but you can't use those skills in conjunction. That's actually going to be a theme. There are some skills that can't be used with certain units that have different skills, but we'll go over it. Break tackle.
Yeah.
They changed it instead of replacing your strength, your agility check with a strength check. Now you add your strength as a modifier to your agility check, and the rules specify that it is a +1 to your agility check if you have 4 or less strength, and +2 if it's 5 or higher. So now, if for some reason you want to, you can go into the strength tree and everyone can use break tackle because now they get a guaranteed modifier to it. Why you would put that on a snotling would be interesting, but I don't know why I keep thinking about snotlings.
Continuing on our trend of fucking lizardmen, because
Yeah.
we also forgot to talk about the Lizardmen changes real quick. Lizardmen, basically, you can't start with your Crocs and 6 Saurus, because you would have like 1 reroll or something like that. Like
Yeah.
the entire like LOS game from Lizardmen is different now. Which we Oh no, Josh missed one thing out of his 4-hour
I did miss the
delve into a
Lizardmen.
rulebook. Sue us.
Yeah.
But basically, break tackle, continually fucking Lizardmen over because they still have 1 AG on their Saurus. So the one skill that they needed to be like halfway useful right now, and it's still terrible for them.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited for break tackle on like gutter runners
Yeah.
because that's just a flat dodge bonus.
Mm-hmm. It
For something.
It's not.
So it's 1 easier dodge. Like it's just super good.
Yeah. It's now good for.
It's unlikely that I'll ever take it, but it'd be cool.
Yeah, and I mean it's great because now it just opens up the field for players that can use it. It's just now not the kind of thing that you want for your big guys anymore because now they only get +2, and if they have one agility, like you said, it's not going to be great. Decay. Decay is now a +1 the casualty roll, and you no longer have to roll 2 injuries and then take both. It is now just a +1 to the casualty roll, so there is a smaller chance of your Rotter dying twice. They may just
Still
die
sad.
once this time.
God damn it. Dump off is now quick pass only. Before it was a short pass, I think. Now it's just a quick pass. And you also have to use it when you're declared the target of a blitz.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do it when you get blocked. You do it when you're declared the target of. So like if you're the target of a blitz, because you have to declare the target before you actually like physically like you do it as you declare the blitz action. You dump off, and then like that blitz guy like fails a dodge and he trips. Well, now the ball's just free.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Weird dump off.
Fend. I didn't even know this too. This is another skill that I didn't know I had this feature that got immediately axed. You can't use Fend as part of a chain push. So apparently, at least on tabletop, if your character with Fend got chain pushed, you could use Fend and then keep that one character that was going to be chain pushed stationary while you move back. And that still hurts my head thinking about it, but it's gone, so who cares?
Okay.
Leap. It allows you to reduce any negative modifiers to jump over a prone or stunned player to a minimum of -1, of course. So
in addition to what Leap already
Yeah.
does, which is like Kislev still does its thing.
Yeah. But they're dead. Loner.
The NAF rulebook gave him pogo stick. It's just better than what they already were. It's so good.
Yeah.
They did our Kislev boys justice.
Loner is like we said before, it has specified values. Pay attention to what those values are. Pro, the only change that's different to that one is that it activates on a 3-up instead of a 4-up. Safe throw. That is now known as safe pass, and it happens on any fumbled pass attempt. I think the old rules said that it couldn't happen on a natural run, but now it does cover natural runs as well. So I have to look it up again, but I believe that safe pass just means that your failed pass attempt that ends in a fumble, you still keep the ball.
Yeah. Shadowing. Shadowing is now more math.
Yeah.
It's
a lot more math.
It is, instead of you rolling 2d6s, adding the player's movement and subtracting the dodging player's movement, it's now 1d6 plus the difference between.
It is literally like.
Can we just like make a graphic and post the?
Oh yeah,
post the
I will.
formula?
I will make a graphic for it. It is literally like an in parentheses math equation, and it says so just in the rule book. It's 1d6 plus the difference between the player's movement allowance and the opponent's movement allowance. Also on a nat 6. You know what? Make a spreadsheet for shadowing if you're planning on using it. You're gonna need it.
Also for tents, the tentacles math has changed because tentacles is now 1d6 instead of 2d6.
Yeah.
So, or is it 2d6 instead of 1d6?
Yeah.
All I know is that tentacles is work. I'm not looking it up right now. Sneaky Git. Everybody's been talking about this one. You don't get set off for rolling doubles on a foul regardless of the result of if you break armor or not, and then you move after the foul.
Perfect. Exactly what we need from Sneaky Git.
Everybody's been talking about Sneaky Git, and everybody's like, oh, well, fouling is just the best way to get players off the pitch now. And I think they might be right.
Yeah.
But
especially if you get the move after the foul, that's big.
That is big. Let me double check to make sure. Fouling is still once per turn,
it's still
right?
once.
Like I'm not crazy
it's
here
still
and
once
being
per
like,
turn.
oh, you can just.
There are. I think there is actually an infamous coach, or there is a rule for something that allows you to do 2. I can't remember what it is. But moving on, stab. You get to earn SPP for stabs, which is great.
Yay! Assassins are still terrible.
Strong arm gives a +1 to a thrown teammate action. It's no longer +1 to long passes and that like. So, big guys who can throw teammates have an option now. And it's great. I think this is great to start giving big guys who are already kind of unreliable, the thing that people love doing most, which is throw teammates. So throw teammate is one of the most memorable actions for Blood Bowl, and I'm glad that they're giving skills that allow you to improve on it. Now, before I desperately try to go into the new skills, I'm going to just run through the dead skills. Bloodlust is dead, fan favorite's dead, kickoff return is dead, leader is double dead, pass block is dead, and piling on. There is something that is similar to piling on, but piling on itself is Deaderino. And I'll go over that in just a second.
Also, kickoff return and pass block, I think, got merged into on the ball.
Yeah.
I think they're now together as one skill. The other change, and the one that Some people are already typing fast at us. I'm gonna nip this one in the bud right now. Yes, Claw and Mighty Blow do not stack for armor breaks anymore. You cannot stack Mighty Blow and Claw to break armor, so you're no longer functionally armor 6. You can still apply the Mighty Blow to the injury roll if you do break armor. So there's still skills that you would conceivably put on the same player, but you're no longer like treating everything as an AV6 player anymore. That is dead. That is actually dead. It specifically says, I think, in Claw or in Mighty Blow that they don't stack. Like, codified in the rules now. So, CPOM, super dead. You'll still be able to kill things just fine with Claw and Mighty Blow. You're just not going to kill everything.
So, new skills, real fast. Defensive. Defensive is a direct counter to guard. If you're in a tackle zone with a defensive player that is marked by a player with guard, that player no longer has guard, which is big.
It's an agility skill, if I remember correctly. So, like, you actually get into, like, some fun stuff with, like, if you're, like, really trying to stat out players. Like, imagine, like, a defensive, like... I was talking to somebody who plays, an Amazon coach. And he was like, well, hold on here. Amazons aren't, like, that dead, because now there's defensive. So now your catchers can not only be markers, but they're anti-guard pieces. And also, I think defensive is specifically on your turn.
Yeah.
It is only on one player's turn, but I don't remember which turn that is. During your opponent's team turn.
So they can't use
they can't use the guard skill if they're being marked by this player. So on your turn, they still have guard, but they can't use guard to make their blocks.
For the opposing team's turn. Safe pair of hands. You get to choose where the ball goes during a fumble. So
I think that's also agility.
Yeah,
that's agility.
Ironheart. Okay, so these next couple are going to be mutations. Ironheart skin. You can no longer be affected by claw. Thank you, GW. Thank you again for making counters to often used skills. I appreciate it. Monstrous
so
mouth.
Niche, though. Monstrous
mouth.
I think you mean monstrous mouth.
I think it's great because now you can give your dude a gaping maw that can reroll failed catches, which is awesome because
which is gross.
I really hope there's an animation for the new Blood Bowl game that incorporates dudes with giant gaping like alien style maws.
I'm imagining, you know, the guy from Amnesia that has like the newt mouth.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm imagining. God, that image gave me nightmares as a kid.
Cloudburster, the opponent must reroll catch interference.
So deflections and interceptions.
So deflections and
because you can deflect the ball.
This is negated with very long legs, though I really want to see when this would happen, and it's going to be a rule that's going to be missed when it comes to it. I can feel it already.
It's going to be a big gotcha moment.
Yeah. Cannoneer, +1 to long pass or long bomb action, so it is the new strong arm.
It's also it's the second. Well, I think was strong arm long. Oh yeah, strong arm was supposed to be like
long or long
bomb, but
bomb
it's also
action.
the second half of accurate.
My favorite one to say, Fumble Rooski. Well, excuse me, my second favorite one to say. We're gonna get to my favorite one. Intentionally drop the ball to perform a move or blitz action. So it's kind of like old school NFL where you would intentionally fumble the ball and let your center pick it up. It's like that, but now you can fumble the ball and say you want to have ball security between a couple of players, and then you can perform a blitz action or a move action. And it doesn't cause a turnover, so I want to see how this works. I want to see how Fumble Rooski is in match play, because I could see it being very interesting now that you can just put the ball on the ground instead of having to hand it off to different players.
Like I'm trying to figure out where this would get used, because I mean, I'm digging through my rulebook right now just to double check, but last I checked, a lot of like blitzers and stuff don't have passing access regardless. So like I know like the elf ones obviously do, but like Oh wait, no, a lot of them do have passing access. Okay, never
Mm-hmm.
mind. Because I was about to be like, okay, so when is this actually coming up outside of I'm going to make this 1 die block? Don't do this with a 1 die, please.
Yeah.
Um, I'll make this 2 die block, and then I'll yeet the ball behind me real quick or something. Like I'm like, okay, like outside of that, I don't understand where this is being used. I know this skill got talked about a lot, but I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how people try to use this.
Yeah. Next one's on the ball. So on the ball, player moves 3 spaces when the opposing coach declares a pass action. And after the range direction is made, but before the roll, it also gives them some rules to kickoff return. So this is what we were talking about earlier. They made kickoff return and what was I going to talk about? They make kickoff return and safe pass or pass block the same skill. So now whenever a ball is thrown or whenever a ball is kicked off, you can move 3 spaces in the direction that the coach has declared.
Yeah. I like that they combined these because these two skills were like, I mean, like people like some people took. I know. Actually, our editor is a big proponent of pass block. Yeah. He loves his pass block. But I never really saw people take pass block or like kickoff return or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting to put them together because now it's like, oh well, like what if we like tacked on this thing on this skill that some people already kind of liked.
Mm-hmm.
I like this change a lot.
I also
Arm
like
bar!
that it's
Okay.
I also like that it's before the roll, so you have to make an action before you know the outcome of it, which to me as a reactionary skill is important because now you can't just be like, oh, now it's going to be an acceptable throw, so I have to move my character. Now you have to, it's a little bit more. To me, that's a balance. It's a very good balance for that skill since it incorporates 2 skills. Running pass, player may move after the pass is resolved. However, you can't move if the pass results in a turnover.
Yeah. Actually, kind of useful because it means that you can make like a short pass or a quick pass to get rid of the ball, and then you can like reposition the passer or the thrower or something. So like it'll be interesting to see it with like how some people try to do this with like Imperial Nobility. I don't know if they'll do it very well or if it'll come off very well. But I like the idea of being able to make a quick pass and then reposition that player to like base up the next closest like blitzer that'd be able to stop the play.
Yeah.
Now we get to talk about armbar. Wait, is it on the ball is a general skill, right? It's still a general skill.
It should still be a general skill. I'll have to look it up.
Okay, yeah. Running pass is obviously passing. Fumble Rooskie's agility. We already talked about that. Armbar is strength. It's mighty blow, but for failing dodges.
Once again, the elves getting the short end of the stick.
So, I know the dwarfs on Old World Alliance have armbar because we didn't talk about the Old World Alliance changes because there's a lot of them. Put bluntly, there's a lot of cost changes, and the halflings don't have loner anymore, so you can one turn a little bit easier. And the actual like dwarf positionals have like different skills. They have like armbar brawler instead of like block tackle. But I'm actually like kind of low key excited for this skill on like a marker, like on a really like high TV marker, just like randomly be like, "No, you," as you trip them.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be useful on that player because it's like, okay, like who cares? But it'll be funny to see it come up.
Yeah,
which is why I'm excited for it. It's also just such a thematic skill. It like it makes sense to have it in the game. Like it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Where was this all my life? Brawler. Everybody's been talking about Brawler. Armbar and Brawler, both strength skills. As we keep forgetting to talk about that. You can reroll a both down result during a player's block, so long as it wasn't a blitz. Really straightforward. People have been talking about this skill all over the place.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, the most confusing thing about it is that people say, well, not people say. Originally, the rules say a block by itself. People thought that it meant, it was just like since this is mostly for black orcs, it meant that it was a single player making a block. You can only re-roll the a both down, but it's actually only if you blitz. Like, so as long as you block as that action, as a single action, you can use Brawler. If you blitz, that's no longer just a block or a move action. That is, a combination of actions, a move and a block. So you can't use Brawler when you blitz, and that's it.
Piledriver it's piling on, but now it's a foul action, it doesn't count towards your one foul action per turn, but because it's a foul, you can also get sent off for it. And does it specify if other players can't help you there? Can you get offensive assists for your foul?
Well, it's a free foul action, so it follows foul rules. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just remember that your Piledriver your player can get sent off the pitch for this. I know some people were talking about like Piledriver on Black Orcs, and I'm like, those are really expensive positions. Like, I get that you get half price bribes, so like maybe like on a couple players you can do that with, but like I don't know why you would do this.
Next is my favorite, since we already talked about Pogo Stick. Motherfucking swoop. Swoop is a great thing to say, and I hope one day to have a character with swoop. And instead of using the scatter template for using when you do a throw teammate action, you now use the throw-in template. So you no longer have 8 directions you can go in. Now it is just 3.
Is the throw teammate one still 3 rolls on the template? Do you just get 3 spaces of movement?
Yeah, and you use you use a D3 to determine the direction of the thrown teammate, and then I think you just move in that direction.
Yeah, but I mean, I was trying to double check if throw teammate is still like 3 rolls on that template or something like that.
We'll have to see.
Because if it is, this is just free movement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's free movement anyway.
I think
but
it might be you land just in the direction after you make the direction roll.
Let's
look it up since that is the last
throw teammate real quick. Test for quality, resolve the throw. Wait, what? Hang on here. Test for quality. Determine if the throw is superb, successful, terrible, or is fumbled.
There is someone who
so
looks
confusing.
like Elsa that's outside my window right now, and she keeps saying, "Kislev, could you hurry up?"
Kislev! Oh god, there's like 3 pages describing...
We'll get to it.
It doesn't... Yeah, we'll
she's
figure
right
that out
next
later.
to me. Ayli. She is like, she keeps yelling, "Kislev, there's a bear. I'm scared."
How do we keep pissing off all these people? Like, first it was the Knurklings.
Cathay's better. Oh no, that did not make her happy.
What?
No. There's just gonna be a lot of talk. But yes, that is for better or for worse. All of the changes. We're gonna go into detail on our opinions on them at a later date because this is turning into an hour and a half episode, maybe even more.
This is impossibly long, and we didn't even talk about like all of the changes on all of the teams.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
So keep all these changes in mind.
There's a lot here.
I want to say thank you to Kiframe, our editor, and then you can follow us on Twitter, and we also have a Discord where we host our own leagues, which right now we're doing a prize league that we hope to continue on a later date. And we hope to see you guys on the pitch. There's a bunch of Kislev bears in the studio right now. They aren't happy. The woman in front of me is really unhappy. And I think I hear demons. So I'm going to head off.
Again with the Knurkle. Did we not check all the drawers?
No, they're horrors this time. It's the same thing but pink and angry.
It's the same thing but pink. Okay, so what brought the bears?
Kislev.
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 Have a very Kislev day,
Kislev. What?
everybody. We will see you next time.